The Winston-Salem Transit Authority is one of the most respected and efficient transportation systems in the country. It's a system that takes over 10,000 people to and from work every day. A business that has over 35 routes and grosses more than $1.4 million per year. It's hard to believe that one of the first Winston-Salem Transit Authority buses looked like this. In the early 1900s, they were called jitneys. Jitney was a slang term for a nickel, which is what it cost to ride. Many of the early jitney drivers used their own vehicles to offer a much-needed source of transportation to the black community. The Morgan brothers were no exception. Ralph Morgan saw jitney services operating while he served in the Army during World War I. By 1926, there were 35 jitney buses in operation. There were no rules or set routes, so the early buses drove haphazardly throughout the black community, picking up passengers wherever they found them. The Morgan brothers, along with 19 other bus owners, including Elijah and Joe Miller, J.H. Hairston, C.T. Woodland, Charlie Peebles, George Dillahunt Sr., John Adams, George Ragsdale, and Edward Davis met April 21, 1926, determined to organize the new industry. Out of this meeting, the Safe Bus Company was formed. Harvey Morgan was the company's first president. It operated, making money and providing jobs for the black community for 42 years. It also laid the foundation for what is now the Winston-Salem Transit Authority. Black leaders that were instrumental in the success of Safe Bus over the years include John Adams, Buster Green, and Hampton Haith. With foresight and determination, those drivers saw a need in the community and, overcoming many obstacles, found a way to meet it. They were not alone. Many African Americans had that same entrepreneurial spirit and started their own companies. The city of Winston-Salem owes a huge debt to those early African American businessmen and women. Between 1870 and 1900, the towns of Winston and Salem experienced phenomenal growth. The population of Winston grew from 473 in 1870 to 2,854 by 1880, and then almost quadrupled by 1890. The expansion was due in part to the completion of the Northwest North Carolina Railroad extension from Roanoke and the success of the tobacco industry. When Winston and Salem merged in 1913, the area continued to thrive, and by 1920, it was the largest city in North Carolina. Many African Americans came to the city to work in the tobacco factory. As the black community grew, its need for services grew as well. The fact that many of these services were not provided by the white community led to even more employment opportunities. Winston-Salem developed a reputation for being a place where both blacks and whites could prosper. It was during this time of growth that many black businesses were born. Many blacks who came to Winston-Salem were employed by R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, lived near the factories, and started their businesses in the same area. A successful black business district developed in the area between Church and Chestnut Streets and 3rd and 4th Streets. J.R. started his own business was William Samuel Scales. He saw a need for an eating establishment that would serve the black factory workers, since most white restaurants would not, and opened a cafe on the corner of 3rd and Church Streets. He served mostly fresh vegetables acquired from his garden. His business became so successful that he was able to leave his factory job to run it. Full accomplishment did not end with the success of his cafe. He later became a realtor, the first black bail bondsman, a grocer, a partner in the Howard Robinson Funeral Home, and the owner of the Lincoln, the Lafayette, and the Rex Theaters. As was also elected president of the Forsyth Savings and Trust Company in 1923, which was Winston-Salem's largest black bank. Other cafes were opened downtown, and by 1890, there were 10 black eating establishments. That number peaked in 1915, when there were 35 cafes in operation. Grocery stores were also popular businesses to own in the black community. Many that opened were mom-and-pop operations, small family-run stores. However, some shops were able to expand and offer employment to others. At one time, there were more than 100 black grocers in Winston-Salem. That number was diminished by the Depression and by the increasing popularity of supermarkets. One successful grocer was Low C. Kearns, who came to Winston-Salem in the early 1900s. He opened several grocery stores as well as a cafe. He was a leader in organizing the CMA, Colored Merchants Association stores, in the 1920s. This association helped black store owners offer lower prices through collective buying. Another successful grocer was Thomas L. Hooper Sr. Black undertakers were among the most financially independent and respected businessmen in the community. Before black citizens went into the undertaking business, white morticians buried the black deceased. Once blacks entered the field, many white funeral homes turned over their black deceased bodies to the black funeral homes. Three of the most successful funeral homes were Brown and Frederick M. Fitch and Howard Robinson. Clark Brown's business is still open today. These early entrepreneurs paved the way for the successful funeral homeowners of today, including Carl Russell, Thomas Hooper III, and Jerry Gilmore. Black barbers were also financially independent. Some learned the trade as apprentices while others attended barber school. By 1935, there were more than 25 barber shops operated by blacks. Henry A. Spencer learned the trade by working as a shoeshine boy in a barber shop. He worked a full shift in R.J. Reynolds' Factory No. 8 and then worked as a barber for another 6 to 8 hours in order to support his large family. He retired from Reynolds at age 65, but continued working as a barber until age 81. His customers would walk miles to receive his professional services. Not all black businessmen started in the tobacco factories. One early entrepreneur, George Black, learned the trade of making bricks by hand in a white-owned company, the Hedgecock Brickyard. After mastering it, George began making bricks on his own time with an old mud mill he had been given to throw away. His business grew and he opened a brickyard with Alex Walker. Mr. Black became an instant celebrity when in the 1970s he was sent by the United States Agency of International Development to Guyana, South America to teach the art of brickmaking. Evidence of his pride in his work can be seen all over Winston-Salem. His bricks were used in many banks, Baptist Hospital, and in some of the most beautiful homes in Winston-Salem. Today, his bronze statue stands at the entrance to the Forsyth County Government Center. Among the most successful business endeavors by blacks was the Winston Mutual Life Insurance Company. The company grew out of the Winston Industrial Association, which was led by Robert W. Brown and consisted of J.W. Jones, J.S. Fitz, W.A. Jones, George W. Hill, J.W. Lewis, John A. Bloom, and J.C. McKnight, among others. The company was established in 1906 to meet the need for sickness and accident insurance among black tobacco workers. Within 3 years, the company had expanded its services to blacks in other cities in North Carolina. In 1915, the company merged with the Mountain City Mutual Company of Asheville and changed its name to Winston Mutual Life Insurance Company. Life Savings and Trust Company, which became the largest black bank in Winston-Salem, opened its doors in 1907 with $1,000 capital. The company was a full-service institution that offered the same professional services as other banks, including checking, savings, loans, and Christmas Club savings accounts. By 1912, blacks had purchased all of the stock in the bank and received 6% dividends on each of the $10 shares they owned. By 1920, the bank's volume of business had grown to more than $12 million. Forsyth Savings was in operation until the mid-1930s, when it was absorbed by Citizens Bank and Trust Company. Another financial institution, the Victory Credit Union, is the oldest remaining black business in Winston-Salem. It was chartered on April 18, 1946. W.M. Nesby organized the credit union with the help of the clergy and the black business community and also served as its first secretary-treasurer. One of the most successful black businesses in Winston-Salem was the Morgan Hoffman Dry Cleaners. At one time, it employed over 50 black citizens in various plants. Its founder, D.L. Morgan, established the Morgan Hoffman Cleaning and Dye Company in 1909. He opened a dry cleaning business in 1914. By the 1930s, he had large plants in the downtown business section and branches in various parts of the city. He even had branches in the white communities. To get around the segregation policy, Mr. Morgan hired white managers to run those branches. His business succeeded due to his constant study of the latest methods of dry cleaning and his use of the most modern equipment available. He promoted the company as Winston Salem's largest exclusive garment cleaners and dyers. Morgan retired in 1961 after more than 50 years in business. Successful businesses often begin as only dreams. They flourish through hard work and determination, such is the case with many of the black-owned businesses that prospered in the early 1900s, paving the way for the black entrepreneurs and business leaders of Winston-Salem today.